My name is David, and this happened back in the spring of 2002. I was 23 at the time, just a few months out of Air Force training, and had been stationed at a base near Albuquerque, New Mexico. Base life was fine, but it got boring fast. My closest friends there were a guy we all called Red, and a girl named Melissa. The three of us spent nearly every weekend together just to escape the monotony. One Saturday, Melissa suggested we drive out to Santa Fe for the day. She had an old SUV, and we figured a change of scenery would do us good. By mid-afternoon, we were cruising down a long, empty stretch of highway, windows rolled down, blasting music. That's when Red noticed something. He leaned forward from the back seat and asked if either of us had seen the SUV that had just pulled out behind us. I looked in the mirror and spotted it, a dark-colored Chevy Tahoe, trailing us at a steady distance. At first, it didn't seem unusual. But then Melissa changed lanes. The Tahoe did the same. She switched back after a minute. Again, it mirrored her move. Before long, flashing lights came on from behind the grill, and we realized we were being pulled over. Melissa slowed and pulled onto the shoulder, and the Tahoe stopped right behind us. But the second I saw the man step out, my stomach dropped. He wasn't dressed like any officer I'd ever seen. He was wearing all black tactical gear, no badge, no name tag, nothing identifying him as police. The only marking was a strange patch on his arm, too small to read from where I sat. Instead of approaching Melissa's window, he lingered behind our SUV. He scanned the bumper stickers, peered through the rear glass at our bags, circled like he was sizing up the vehicle. Red finally rolled his window down and asked if there was a problem. The man didn't answer right away. Then, suddenly, he strode up to Melissa's window and demanded her license and registration. She handed them over reluctantly, and he returned to his SUV. Minutes dragged on. We whispered to each other about how wrong this all felt. Then the man came back. Only this time, he wasn't alone. Two other men in similar black gear stepped out of the Tahoe and stood near the back of our SUV. The original man leaned down to Melissa's window and asked if her father had been in the military. Melissa looked confused and asked why. He nodded toward the Air Force bumper sticker on the back of her car. Melissa chuckled nervously and told him no, she was in the military. Then she gestured to me and Red, adding, "Them too." The man didn't say anything right away, but I saw his body language shift. He glanced at the two men behind him, then back at Melissa. There was a heavy pause before he handed her license back and muttered, "I'll let you off with a warning. Drive slower." Without another word, the three of them got back into the Tahoe and sped off down the highway. The car was silent for the next few minutes. Eventually, Red said what we were all thinking: those men weren't real cops. We were certain that if we'd been just a group of civilians, something far worse would have happened on that highway. We tried to shake it off and continued to Santa Fe. The trip ended up being fun, and by the time we returned to base later that night, the scare had almost faded from our minds. But a week later, it all came flooding back. Red and I were sitting in the base rec room watching the evening news when a story came on about a double homicide. A young couple had been found murdered and dumped in a ditch off a rural highway just outside Albuquerque. Their car had been abandoned nearby. The vehicle the killers had been driving? A black Chevy Tahoe, reported stolen months earlier. I remember looking at Red in that moment, both of us frozen. We rushed to find Melissa and agreed we needed to tell the police about what had happened to us. Even after we filed the report, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how easily it could have been us. And about how something as simple as a bumper sticker, marking us as military, may have been the only thing that kept us out of that ditch. This happened back in the fall of 2016 when I was 21. My best friend Ryan and I were taking a long road trip from northern Colorado to visit some old college friends down in Austin, Texas. It was about a 14 to 15 hour drive, but we figured with the two of us, we could do it in one go. I started off driving. After about 4 hours, Ryan took over while I tried to get some sleep. But for whatever reason, I couldn't. The seat was uncomfortable, the road noise was loud, and my brain just wouldn't shut off. So by the time it was my turn to drive again, I was exhausted, even more than I had been before. Still, I thought I was alert enough. The problem was, I wasn't paying much attention to the gas gauge. We were driving Ryan's old Chevy, which didn't have any fancy tech, no low fuel beeps, no digital alerts, just a little analog gauge I barely glanced at. It wasn't until the engine sputtered and the steering felt heavy that I realized we were basically running on fumes. Ryan woke up immediately when the car started to slow. He grabbed his phone and started frantically searching for the nearest gas station. But within 30 seconds, the car died completely, and I had to pull onto the shoulder of a desolate two-lane highway. The nearest gas station? 4 miles ahead. We were in the middle of nowhere. Flat farmland and fields on both sides, no houses, no streetlights, no other cars in sight. We debated what to do. Ryan decided he'd walk to the gas station and bring back a can of fuel while I stayed with the car. It felt smarter than calling roadside assistance and paying $200 for a gallon of gas. So he grabbed his jacket, stepped out into the dark, and started walking down the road. Within a minute, he disappeared into the night. I stayed in the car, stewing over how stupid I'd been. A few minutes later, headlights appeared up ahead. A car was coming toward me, but something felt off immediately. The speed limit was at least 55, but this car was crawling, maybe 15 miles an hour. It crept past me, then I saw its brake lights glow in my side mirror. It slowed even more. Then, to my disbelief, it did a slow 3-point turn and came back around. I stayed perfectly still, trying not to make eye contact. The car passed me again, even slower this time, practically rolling. I couldn't see the driver's face, but I felt their eyes on me. Then, just as suddenly, the car picked up speed and drove back the way it had come. My stomach was in knots. Something about it was deeply wrong. I immediately called Ryan to tell him what had just happened and to hurry up if possible. The phone rang and rang, but he didn't answer. I tried again. Still nothing. That's when panic really set in. It had been maybe 10 or 15 minutes since he'd left. I figured if I jogged, I could catch up to him quickly. I locked the car and started jogging down the shoulder of the road. It was dead silent out there. So quiet that when I stopped running, I could hear ringing in my ears because there was literally nothing else making a sound. No insects, no wind. Just total stillness. I jogged for a solid 15 minutes. I should have caught up to him by then, unless he'd started running too. I pulled out my phone to call him again. That's when I heard it. The faint sound of a phone ringing somewhere off the side of the road. I stopped dead in my tracks. Out in the tall grass, maybe 30 feet from the pavement, I could just make out the glow of a phone screen. I called his name. No response. I stepped off the road into the grass. I called out again, louder this time. Finally a voice, Ryan's, but faint, and I couldn't make out the words. I hurried closer. Then he yelled again, clear this time. Get down! I dropped into the grass instantly. I still couldn't see him, but I did as he said. That's when I heard the low rumble of an engine. I looked back at the road. A car was approaching, the same one as before. It crawled down the road, passing our area at a snail's pace, brake lights flickering like it was about to stop. The driver was scanning the sides of the highway, searching. They made another turnaround, then another, each time creeping by, shining their headlights across the grass. We stayed hidden, not moving a muscle. My heart was pounding so loud I thought it would give us away. Finally, after what felt like forever, the car accelerated and disappeared down the highway. We waited several more minutes before Ryan emerged from the grass a few feet away. He was pale, covered in dirt, clutching his knees. He told me everything. When the car first pulled over near him, the driver had tried to get him to hop in for a ride to the station. The guy's demeanor was creepy, aggressive even, and he made no attempt to hide his intentions. When Ryan refused, the man got out of his car. That's when Ryan bolted off the road and into the tall grass. At some point, his phone fell out of his pocket. We eventually made it to the gas station together. still looking over our shoulders. We called the police, gave them the description of the car and the man, but they never found him. I still think about it. About how a dead gas tank at 1 a.m. in the middle of nowhere nearly turned into something unthinkable. And I've never, ever let my fuel gauge drop below a quarter tank since.